It was a pale November morning in 1962 when in the modest city of Erfurt, East Germany, a child named Sabine drew her first breath, unaware that she would one day shatter world records, rise to thunderous applause in Olympic stadiums, and leave a legacy written in seconds and heartbeats. The street lamps flickered along narrow lanes dusted by frost. Inside a small flat, a mother cradled her newborn daughter and whispered promises of love and hope. That baby Sabine, rosy-cheeked and curling her tiny fingers, would grow into one of the fastest women on earth, a woman whose feet would pound tracks, clear barriers, and leave the world gasping. Through the roar of crowds, the hush before the starting gun, the sting of lactic acid in her lungs, and the blind faith she carried in her own stride, Sabine's story is one of transformation, grit, and indomitable spirit. Tonight this story unfolds. We will journey through her early days in Erfurt, her childhood dreams, the awakening of her talent for speed, the long hours of training, the many races, the wins and the losses. We will walk with her through the pivotal switch from flat 400-meter sprint to the 400 meters hurdles, a decision that would define her destiny. We will see the sweat and struggle behind her 1985 world record, the bittersweet disappointment of 1986, the triumphant roar of 1987, the shadow of political boycotts, the Olympic heartbreak, the painful surgeries, and the final curtain of a career that still resonates decades later. And through all that, we will listen in on her inner monologues, feel the sharp snap of hurdles underfoot, taste the sweat on her lips, and hear the heartbeat of an athlete refusing to surrender. Because this is more than a biography. It is a testament to what one human being can achieve when dreams refuse to quiet, when passion burns steady, and when will refuses to bow. Sabine grew up in Erfurt during a time when every child seemed caught between expectation and promise. The city was modest, streets with leafy elms, old buildings whose facades whispered of history. As a girl, Sabine was energetic, running through hallways, chasing friends, climbing over park benches, always racing, always fast. Her family saw early on that she was different. She had a long stride for her young legs, a lightness, a sense of motion in her bones. She loved the wind against her face, the flash of scenery as she ran, the pulse in her chest that said, "I am alive, I am free." When she was still a teenager, coaches from the local club SC Turbine Erfurt noticed something special in her, not just raw speed, but a rhythm. They offered her structured training, days of drills and repetition. Sabine found discipline hard at first, used to running for joy, not for dominance. But soon she began to see the beauty in routine, the quiet stretching before sunrise, the steady cadence of feet against the track, the smell of sweat in damp lanes after training. She began to dream not just of being fast, but of being the fastest. Her first major breakthrough came in the early 1980s, as she raced the flat 400 meters. At 400 meters, she was raw speed made visible. In 1982, at the European Championships, she came tantalizingly close, finishing fourth in the 400 meters final. But 3 days later, she stood on the field again. This time, as part of the East German for 400 meters relay team, along with her compatriots. When they crossed the finish line, the stadium erupted. They had claimed gold, and in doing so, set a world record time of 3 minutes 19 seconds and 4 milliseconds. The cheers echoed for minutes. Young Sabine, arms raised, drank in the adoration, even as her chest heaved with exhaustion. That night she lay awake, replaying the race in her mind. The crack of the starting gun, the surge of speed, the baton passed, the roar, the embrace. She tasted victory, and it left a hunger. In 1983, under the bright stadium lights at the World Championships, she ran the 400 meters with fierce determination. She didn't make the final, eliminated in the semifinal, but once again, she anchored the relay to gold, proving that even when she fell short individually, as part of a team, she rose. Her commitment deepened. She doubled down on training. Hours turned into days of sprint work, strength training, sprints on cinder tracks under gray skies. Long afternoons of stretching, conditioning, mental focus. She pushed, asked questions, demanded from herself more than performance. She demanded consistency. By 1984, Sabine had achieved a personal milestone, a blazing 49.24 seconds in the 400 meters, a lifetime best. In Germany's all-time list, she stood second only to the legendary Marita Koch. But international glory remained elusive. The 1984 Olympics approached, and for an athlete burning with ambition, missing the chance to compete was a blow too heavy to ignore. Political tides, the Eastern Bloc boycott, locked the doors of opportunity, and Sabine stood outside, watching. She trained anyway. She ran on empty tracks, alone, repeating laps in her mind when her legs ached, refusing to let disappointment settle. She remembered the wind in her hair as a child, the first taste of victory, and resolved to fight on. Then came 1985, the pivotal year. Perhaps it was the frustration at what had been denied, or the burning ambition finally finding its path. Sabine made a bold decision. She would switch from the flat 400 meters to the 400 meters hurdles. It was a gamble. She had never raced hurdles at the top level. The event demanded not just speed, but rhythm, timing, technique, precision, and guts. Some said it wouldn't suit her. But Sabine felt a spark. She could almost taste the challenge. She knew that not every runner had to do what others did. She was forging her own path. Her first season in hurdles was electric. In Moscow, at the European Cup 1985, she ran 54.13 seconds, a signal to the world that she belonged. Then on the 22nd of September 1985, in East Berlin, she cleared each barrier like a sprinter refusing to be slowed down and crossed the finish line in 53.55 seconds. She had broken the world record. In that moment, under stadium lights and roaring applause, Sabine Busch became more than a sprinter. She became a symbol, a barrier breaker in every sense. Inside her heart, she felt a wild, fierce joy, like bursting free. It would not be easy. More records were being challenged. More rivals arose. In 1986, at the European Championships in Stuttgart, her world record was snatched from her by Soviet star Marina Stepanova, who ran 53.32 seconds. Sabine finished a close second at 53.60. In that race, the stadium echoed with cheers for the new champion and a hush for Sabine's near victory. For many it might have meant doubt, despair, the temptation to give in, but not for Sabine. She had tasted the top, and she knew what it felt like. She also relished the hunger it awakened. As the crowd celebrated, she locked eyes with teammates from East Germany, felt their solidarity, and said quietly, under her breath, "I will be back." Behind the scenes, the training intensified. Early mornings, late evenings, hours of hurdling drills, rhythm work, every muscle, every tendon, every breath tuned. Sabine studied film of her races, analyzed each hurdle, each step. She was never graceful. She didn't glide like others, but she was powerful, determined. Her technique was raw, sometimes awkward. But her speed was steel. She believed speed could overcome imperfection. On days when her legs buckled, she whispered to herself, "Speed, Sabine." Then came 1987, the year that would etch her name in history. She began the season with success indoors, seizing the 400 meters title at the World Indoor Championships in Indianapolis, showing that her raw power still ruled the flat track. But everyone knew what her heart yearned for, the hurdles. During that summer, every training session felt electric. The air smelled of sweat and determination. As the days shortened and the calendar approached August, Sabine's longing burned hotter. On the 21st of August, 1987, at the East German National Championships in Potsdam, she exploded down the track, cleared 10 barriers with relentless drive, and smashed the national record 53.24 seconds, the fastest time ever recorded by a German woman over 400 meters hurdles. As she crossed the line, she briefly closed her eyes, arms overhead, then opened them to see the electronic board blinking. The time hovered, shimmering like a promise, 53.24. And with that, history inhaled, world records, national records, all had run out of breath. Only a few days later, at the 1987 World Championships in Rome, under a summer sky, and before a sea of expectant faces, Sabine stood in the starting blocks. Her heart pounded, lungs cooled, spikes tight, every nerve alive. The gun cracked. She launched, legs churning like pistons, arms pumping, eyes fixed on the first hurdle. The crowd gasped as she stumbled at a hurdle early, her form less than perfect, but she didn't falter. She drove harder, leaned into the pain, sped over barrier after barrier. By the final bend, she was pulling ahead, leaving rivals behind. With the final surge, she charged across the finish line in 53.62 seconds, a championship record. The stadium erupted. Sabine Busch, East Germany, was the world champion. Relief, triumph, exhaustion, they washed over her in waves. She sank to her knees for a moment, breathing hard, disbelief shining in her eyes. Before standing and raising her arms toward the cheering crowd, she had done it. She had conquered. 3 days later, she anchored East Germany's 400 meters relay team, racing with teammates whose names would also stand among the greats. When they touched the line, arms linked, tears and smiles, the gold settled around their shoulders like soft crowns. That summer, Sabine pushed aside doubt, politics, tragedy, and became absolute. A double world champion, a record breaker, a force. But as with every great story, triumph came with turbulence. The next year, at the 1988 Summer Olympics in Seoul, the pinnacle many dream of. Sabine lined up in the 400 meters hurdles final with fierce expectation. The stadium lights gleamed, the world held its breath. She ran powerful and precise, but in a race of unprecedented speed and pressure, she faded in the final stretch. She crossed the line in 53.69 seconds, fourth place. Just behind her was her compatriot, who took bronze with 53.63. The cheers belonged to someone else, and Sabine felt the sting. For many, that would have been devastating. For her, it was fuel. But consolation came soon, as anchor of the East German for 400 meters relay. She and her teammates clinched the Olympic bronze medal. The Olympic podium, while not the place she had envisioned, was still a place of honor, and she carried that medal with dignity. After the highs of 1987 and the heartbreak of 1988, Sabine's body began to whisper of wear and tear. In 1989, she underwent surgery on her left foot. The pain had been bothering her for months, every training session a gamble between progress and injury. The surgery gave a glimmer of hope, but also a realization. Time was not infinite for a body built for sprinting, for hurdling. She tried to return, pushing through rehab, training cautiously, hoping to strike again. But the form she once had, raw speed, fierce jumps, that lightning-quick stride had begun to fade. In 1991, she competed for a unified Germany at the World Championships in Tokyo. She ran 55.93 seconds in the semifinals. It was not enough to reach the final. Curtains were drawing closed. In quieter years that followed, Sabine stepped away from the track. The roar of stadiums replaced by the quieter hum of everyday life. Memories of starting guns, roaring crowds, the scent of cinder tracks, they drifted as if through mist. She saw comrades, fellow athletes, some retired, some coaching, some walking away with their medals and their regrets. She walked with them in solidarity. She carried with her the triumphs and the disappointments. But above all, she carried a record. 53.24 seconds on the 400 meters hurdles, a German national record that stands to this day. As of now, no German woman has run faster. Beyond the medals and the records, Sabine carried something less visible, but far more enduring character. She embodied tenacity, courage, and the fiercely human ability to hope again when the fires of ambition flicker low. When the boycott denied her Olympic debut in 1984, she trained harder. When her world record was taken, she came back stronger. When the Olympics disappointed her, she accepted bronze with grace and moved on. When injury struck, she faced reality. She never pretended her path was easy. She never whitewashed her doubts or her pain. But she refused to surrender. Imagine her in the quiet of an empty stadium. Morning mist on the track. No crowds, no applause. She runs anyway. The spikes gently hitting the ground, feet whispering against the lanes, the wind brushing her hair. The only sound, her breath, her heartbeat, her resolve. That was Sabine Busch, not always graceful, seldom perfect, but always relentless. Let us remember also that behind those blazing performances stood a young woman from Erfurt, a girl who ran in streets and parks because she loved the feeling of motion, who believed in herself even when systems, politics, and pain tried to silence the roar, who blocked out doubt with rhythm, strength, and faith. To you watching on Behind the Medal, if you find yourself doubting, if you feel the hurdles rising in your own life, remember Sabine's story. Remember that victory isn't just for those born perfect or favored. It is for those who train when no one watches, who stand again when they fall, who believe again after disappointment. That 53.24 seconds is more than a time. It is a testament to human will. If Sabine's journey inspired you, do what champions do. Hold on, rise again, and never stop chasing. If you liked this story, like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe to Behind the Medal for more tales of grit, glory, and heart. Until next time, keep running toward your dreams. Disclaimer: this story aims to celebrate the athletic achievements of Sabine Busch and inspire viewers. It does not attempt to verify or discuss allegations of performance-enhancing practices or political context. Beyond widely documented facts,